In Yu Bing's eyes, her Sanji who had never went to school was even better in controlling monsters than the second-year students in her school. Having not learned any of the controlling techniques, he had learned how to direct the flower to its target all by himself. He had synchronized with the flower and transferred his will into it. This feat was often a big hurdle for all of the students from the plant department when they were learning the control technique. Sanji had managed to do it so easily. Moreover, he learned it without anyone teaching it to him. In barely a few seconds, he could order a spitting thorny flower which had just been contracted and summoned for the first time to attack a target with poison spit. Such a natural and quick-thinking skill, once he entered school, he would probably be considered as a genius that only came once in 100 years by the teachers. Yu Bing looked at Yu Yang, who was thoroughly dismayed. Her greatest shock was actually not because of his quick-thinking skills, but from the fact that this person, who was called a loser by the others, was absolutely not aware of how scary his natural abilities were. AI? Yu Yang was about to hide in the corner and draw circles on the ground when he suddenly saw the spitting thorny flower in front of him wither and drop to the ground. A flash of information floated across his mind and made him smack his forehead again. He was really an idiot. The advantage of the spitting thorny flower from other monsters was that it does not need to be fed nor be taken care of. It also did not need a particular condition to exist. The monsters from the animal category and the beast category had to be fed in order to attack with their magic, while the monsters from the insect category and fish category needed to fulfill several conditions before it could exist in this world. Compared to them, the plant category and the puppet category were the easiest to manage. If the puppet category monster was broken, it could simply be taken to the puppet palace to be fixed. However, if it was destroyed, then it wouldn't be able to be revived. Also, the greatest disadvantage of the monsters from the puppet category was that they couldn't evolve. On the other hand, the monsters in the plant category can evolve, but their greatest disadvantage was their movement speed. They were extremely slow. Furthermore, they lacked intelligence. Rather than training a spitting thorny flower to spit poison, people would rather train a wind wolf, shadow leopard and engage in close combat instead. However, the spitting thorny flower also had its own advantage. Its greatest advantage was that it could devour a dead body and evolve. Other than monsters from the puppet category, as long as it was a living thing, it could devour them and digest them slowly. Then, it would evolve and level up using the powers in the dead body. It's just that in the beginning, this flower was extremely small and weak. One poison spit would have consumed all of its power, and it would quickly wither. Of course, this did not mean it was really dead. Only if it was utterly destroyed, then it couldn't be revived. Amongst all other monsters, no matter if they were holy beasts or mythical beasts, there was only one type who would never die, the guardian beast from the summoning grimoire. Guardian beasts were the only type of monster that would die nor betray their summoner. Other monsters would have their own degree of loyalty. If their loyalty was low, the monster could even run away during battles. Worst of all, it could disappear on its own from the summoning grimoire. Looks like you have already noticed it. Yes, the monsters in the plant category are indeed different from the others. They have a special ability, and that is take root. Yu Bing then ordered her spitting thorny flower to spit poison, and it quickly hit the mud target on the wall accurately in the middle of the cross. Her faultless move made Yu Yang red with embarrassment. She was indeed one of the geniuses in the family, her skills were top-notch. Then, Yu Bing's spitting thorny flower started to slowly wither. However, it didn't disappear like Yu Yang's flower did. Her flower only fell to the ground, and slowly, extremely slowly, it grew once again. Yu Bing acted like a teacher as she explained it to Yu Yang. Just now I had just commanded the flower to take root in the soil. As long as it touches the ground, it can replenish its energy from the earth. This flower could then recover in around 10 minutes, and would not wither. Yu Yang was like a student who was seriously listening to his teacher as he nodded happily. All right, let me try again. Eh? Yu Bing froze when she heard that. Try again? Didn't he just contract a grimoire? New grimoire contractors should only be an apprentice, and an apprentice could at most summon a monster in a day. The spitting thorny flower that he summoned had already withered and disappeared. What was he going to try again on? She had wanted to take the opportunity to educate him, to tell him that he should protect his monsters well and not let them die easily. This was because there was a limit to the number of times a person could summon their monsters. Thus, no matter if it was during battles or normal training, he should take better care of his summons. Could he still summon another monster? On the other hand, Yu Yang didn't know what was going on in the little Miss' mind. He excitedly tried to summon another spitting thorny flower, and then concentrated hard to order the flower to take root on the ground. It's a success! I could finally do it! Yu Yang clapped his hands in happiness. Although he was not a genius, he believed that at least he was not mediocre. Seeing all of these, Yu Bing almost fell on the ground. And thus, the astounded sister and the fake brother started to have this banter. Sanji, didn't you just contract the grimoire? I say, you have only successfully contracted the grimoire a few days ago, right? The shocked Yu Bing asked agitatedly. Yeah, that's right. Yu Yang nodded as he replied. Then what level are you now? Are you a level 1, apprentice, or a level 2, brave man? Yu Bing asked again. Level 1 apprentice. Yu Yang replied truthfully. You are a level 1, apprentice, of what rank? Beginner rank, intermediate rank or advanced rank? How far are you from level 2? What I meant is, did you perhaps level up to level 2 without knowing and had become a beginner rank, brave man? Yu Bing asked, full of curiosity. No, how could it be that fast? Take a look, I'm definitely a beginner rank level 1, apprentice. Leveling to level 2 is extremely hard, that I know. Although Yu Yang had only been here for a few days, he understood that more or less from the knowledge provided by the summoning grimoire. He turned his copper grimoire to his stats page to let Yu Bing see his level and rank by herself. After confirming what she heard, the little miss felt a little faint as she asked, Sanji, a level 1 apprentice, could only summon one monster in one day, how could you have summoned 2? Ah, Yu Yang scratched his head. Actually I did not summon 2. You didn't? Then what is this? Yu Bing pointed at the spitting thorny flower that had just been summoned by Yu Yang. Was she only dreaming? That was the withered spitting thorny flower I summoned previously. Yu Yang felt weird. Was there something wrong? Even if it was that same plant, it has already withered and died, so you should not be able to summon it today anymore. How could you summon it again? Yu Bing was so confused that she almost fainted. Could it be that her Sanji was a genius that only comes once in 1,000 years, which only exists in legends? According to the legends, there exists a genius who had an abnormal growth, who could summon any of his contracted monsters twice. However, such a talent, let alone in 100 years, even if it was 1,000 years, it was hard to come by. Could it be that her Sanji was such a talent? Yu Bing looked at Yu Yang again in a different light. She saw a talent with abnormal abilities. Yu Yang didn't know that he was different from the others. He tried to explain in confusion. Actually, the flower did not die. Just now when I first summoned the flower, I divided it into two. I left its main body and only summoned out one of its branches. But the main body and the summoned part have equal powers. Just now the branch had died, but its main body still exists, so it was not affected. Of course, this type of summoning would require strenuous effort. What are you saying? You knew how to do a division propagation summon? Yu Bing felt the sky around her turn dark. Ah, didn't the flower have the abilities, poison spit, take root, division propagation, corpse feeding, and spores? I can't use corpse feeding, as there are no corpses around right now, and spores require the flower to be of higher level. That's why I used division propagation. Wah! What are you doing? Yu Yang was flustered as Yu Bing had suddenly grabbed his sleeves tightly. You understood division propagation? Did I hear correctly? Yu Bing was so agitated that her whole face was red as she grabbed Yu Yang's sleeves tightly. Her eyes glared at Yu Yang as she interrogated him. Amongst the plant category, most of the monsters would have the division propagation ability. Especially the flowers, vines and mushroom types. Almost all of them could propagate. However, other plant types such as trees and bamboos may not be able to. The teachers in the academy would only teach students how to use the skills, take root, and poison spit, but division propagation was not that easy to teach. Some teachers may not even mention the existence of this skill. Yu Bing had seen it executed before, which was the reason why she knew about division propagation. She had asked her teacher to teach her before, but that greedy bastard hinted that she would need to at least pay him 50 gold before he would be willing to teach her the hidden, almost cheat-like skill. Unfortunately, all of the family's fortune had been used to buy the Spirit Beast Awakening Knowledge Pill from the floating mist market for Yu Yang. Having no funds, Yu Bing could only refuse this bribing offer. Hence, she never had the chance to learn the division propagation skill. And now, the one who was labeled as a loser could actually execute such a hidden skill without being taught by any teacher. How could this not agitate her? Third brother, teach me. Teach me how to make these plants do division propagation. Yu Bing was excited beyond belief as she shook Yu Yang's sleeves as hard as she could. All right, first, let me go. Calm down. Yu Yang was nervous. He thought this little miss was too eager to learn. All right, since she had taught him just now, it was his turn to teach her. Seventh sister, it is actually very easy. It's just like normal summoning. First use telepathy and synchronize with the spirit beast as one, to the point where you sort of feel that you can totally control the beast's summoning. Then command it to execute division propagation. However, at this point, you should be sure that you have enough spirit power. Then the flower should give you an image, like there were two thorny flower plants, one should be the main body while the other is the secondary body. You should then visualize leaving the image of the main body in your mind and summon the secondary body out. As long as your spirit power is enough and the image of the main body you hold in your mind doesn't change, then you would have the power to use division propagation to summon the flower unlimited times. However, that requires a lot of effort. Your brain will be a mess. It's difficult to bear. Yu Yang told her what the copper grimoire had taught him when the knowledge of the spitting thorny flower came into his mind. He also included his own experience. He knew that even in the plant category, there should be an even greater hidden knowledge. Right now his level was too low, just an apprentice, hence he couldn't pull out all of that knowledge. Maybe, he thought, he could understand all of this knowledge because he had the divine vision skill. That's why he could see through the flower's hidden ability. Otherwise, how could the little miss who had studied for so many years in the academy, also known as a true genius, had not learned the division propagation skill? Oh, okay, I'm going to try it immediately. This time it was Yu Bing's turn to act like an eager student as she nodded her head vigorously, her face showing an excited expression. Go about it slowly, don't rush it. Yu Yang had not even finished his sentence before the little miss placed her hands on the flower illustration. She closed her eyes and imagined, testing it out. There wasn't any reaction for quite a long while, and Yu Yang had thought that he taught her wrongly. Suddenly, Yu Bing's expressions changed into pain as she turned deathly white. Her small hands started to tremble. This continued for around a minute, before a golden light started to glow at her fingers. Two spitting thorny flowers appeared in front of her at the same time. The one on the left looked somewhat taller than the right, and its trunk was also slightly thicker. However, other than this, the two plants looked more or less the same, no matter the color, shape or movements. Their differences were negligible. At these, Yu Bing's forehead started to be drenched with sweat. It was as if she had won a great battle. She opened her eyes, wiped away the sweat with her hands and gasped for breath. Although she looked extremely tired, her eyes only showed the excitement and joy of succeeding the feat. I've succeeded. Thank you, third brother. I've always wanted to learn division propagation, but there wasn't any teacher who was willing to teach me. Thank you, third brother. Yu Bing thought about the grievances she had suffered in the academy, and her eyes started to turn a little red. But the little miss was extremely strong. She did not cry but instead bowed towards Yu Yang. Yu Yang immediately shook his head and hands. No, it's okay. Seventh sister, if it wasn't for you who had given me the spitting thorny flower, I wouldn't even know about such a skill. When he said that, Yu Bing immediately snapped out from her excitement. That's right, didn't the third brother just get the spitting thorny flower monster? How could he know about division propagation? Seeing the little miss looking at him with a weird gaze, Yu Yang was deeply confused. He hurriedly tried to lie to her. Seventh sister, it's like this. My innate skill is camouflage. This means that I can find out monsters' hidden abilities and attributes. But my skill is only at level 1, I can only find out the hidden abilities that were beginner ranked. Indeed, I didn't see your skills just now, so I didn't notice that. I didn't know that the third brother's skill was such a godly camouflage skill. Even if Yu Bing was a genius, she was still a teenager. She easily believed Yu Yang's lie. Yeah, but you should never tell others, otherwise, they might get jealous. Yu Yang was a low-key person and he didn't like to be the center of attention. His biggest dream was to be a shut-in millionaire. Third brother, just now, did you say that the flower had the corpse feeding and spore skills other than poison spit, take root, and division propagation? Yu Bing had now truly become Yu Yang's student. After learning the division propagation skill that she had very much coveted for many years, she thirsted to learn the other two abilities. Yu Yang only knew now that the knowledge he had was even deeper than a student who had spent 4 years learning in the academy. Yu Yang wanted to put his nose up in the air, wore a scholar robe and grow a long beard, then listen to the beautiful Miss Yu Bing sweetly calling him Teacher Yu. However, after he had finished his imagination, his mischievous nature returned. Although Yu Bing did not mean any harm, if he told her everything, he wouldn't feel right. He was obviously a shameless bastard, how could he be nice towards her for free? Thus, Yu Yang decided to keep the secret of the thorny flower hidden. The thorny flower's corpse-feeding ability enables it to swallow a monster corpse whole and digest it slowly. When commanding the flower to commence with corpse feeding, you would be required to be fully synchronized with it. For example, if you ordered the flower to eat an iron fur mice, you yourself must be willing to eat the iron fur mice in your mind. Ordering the flower to execute corpse feeding was nothing much, but did she have to be willing to eat the mice herself? When the little miss thought about that, she almost puked. Actually, the guy who was up to no good had used a mouse as an example on purpose. With regards to the corpse feeding ability, it was definitely not that simple. He had kept the real method secret. Ha ha ha. Yu Yang was secretly laughing. With his mice example, he managed to hide the secret skills of the spitting thorny flower. If the flower fed on corpses that were not suitable for it, it would never evolve. Corpse feeding allows the flower to gain a huge amount of energy for recovery. This was extremely beneficial, especially in the long term. The flower has the ability to store excess energy absorbed from corpses in its body. They would be stored in its fruits, which was called the thorny flower fruit. Each and every fruit would hang on the thorny flower, and they had the ability to replenish the flower's power that was consumed during battle at any point of time. However, if the spitting thorny flower wanted to evolve from corpse feeding, they would have to feed from corpses that had the most suitable attributes to it. The higher the level, the better it would be. When the flower feeds from corpses, there is a big secret to it. If the flower had absorbed a living thing that had the same attributes in the beginning, then it would not become a variation, it would only gain levels. Conversely, if the flower had absorbed a living thing that did not have the same attributes, e.g. a human body, in the first absorption, it would not gain levels, but it would evolve to become a variant. Almost all of the monsters in the Soaring Dragon continent were normal monsters. Only a few monsters would undergo evolution to become a variation under certain conditions. Monsters that had gone through variation would be much stronger than normal monsters. Such variant monsters could more easily evolve into an elite monster. When it evolved to an elite monster, its abilities would greatly increase. Similar to the Grimoire rankings, the elite monsters' ranks are divided into copper, silver, gold, platinum and diamond, 5 different types of ranks. Every time an elite monster rises in rank, its powers would increase by tenfold. Let alone platinum and diamond ranked monsters, even having copper ranked monsters was something only normal people could dream of all their lives. I think I'll give up on corpse feeding anyway. My guardian spirit beast is not the thorny flower, it's a Treeman warrior. I would only use the thorny flower to practice controlling technique anyway. I've never used it for battle. Yu Bing shook her head as she quickly refused. She couldn't even stand the thought of eating an iron fur mice, let alone wanting to eat it. Such a pity, Yu Yang laughed inside. He knew that the little miss had lost interest in the corpse feeding skill. Sanji, could you teach me the spore skill instead? Yu Bing was definitely a bright and eager student. She did not have any ill intentions like his fake brother. This is only a skill that a thorny flower who had reached level 4, Thorny Flower Overlord, could do. Even when a spitting thorny flower evolved into a level 2, carnivorous thorny flower, or a level 3, giant thorny flower, it still wouldn't have the spore ability. Only when it has reached level 4 and became a thorny flower overlord, it could disperse its parasitic spores. These spores would stick on corpses and turn them into spitting thorny flowers. If the opponent was a living person, the spores would enter into the person and devour his internal organs, sucking in his blood. Then it will evolve into a carnivorous thorny flower and come out from the person's body by tearing his stomach apart. When Yu Yang explained it in that way, the little miss could only cringe as she was unable to endure it anymore. She was thoroughly traumatized when she thought of a spore entering a person through the mouth, devouring his internal organs and then crawling back out. A grotesque, carnivorous thorny flower, forcing its way out of a previously healthy person, such a traumatizing scene. That was so frightening. Although Yu Bing was a genius teenager, her mental age was still a 15-year-old girl. Her pure and naive heart was deeply disturbed with such bloody images. Of course, Yu Yang had purposely described it with such vivid words. The real use for spores was not to kill people. Who would be so foolish as to stand still and let the spores take root on their bodies? The main purpose for these spores was to break down corpses. There are some special monsters that would turn into zombies when they die, or resurrect again with several conditions. For example, the monsters in water category and fire category could be resurrected under a summoner's special skill. As the owner of the thorny flower, one would not be able to survive against these in a battle. The thorny flowers, spores, could finally be used in this kind of scenario. It could parasitize these monsters' corpses and turn them fully into spitting thorny flowers, interrupting their revival. This interception would definitely weaken the other party's fighting strength. With regards to parasitizing on living people, it was actually something very difficult to do. Furthermore, rather than having the spores parasitize on them, wouldn't it be better to order the Overlord Thorny Flower to gobble that unlucky person up? Who knows, maybe the Overlord Thorny Flower could evolve another rank. Thank you, third brother. Plant-type monsters were already the weakest among the monsters, and this thorny flower is the weakest of the weak. It will be difficult to train it into a level 4 Overlord Thorny Flower. It's best if we leave it at that. You should focus more on training your own guardian spirit beast, because that would suit your training the most. What? You couldn't summon your guardian spirit beast? Ah. Maybe you are just like me, the oddballs amongst summoners, what a pity. If only third brother has the talent to summon other monsters like you have summoned the thorny flower, then your future will be limitless. Such a pity. When Yu Bing heard about Yu Yang's inability to summon his guardian spirit beast, she was greatly saddened for him. She quickly comforted him by assuring him that his guardian spirit beast was definitely the most suitable monster for him. He might not be able to summon it right now because his spirit level was not high enough. He could simply raise his spirit level slowly, and there wouldn't be any problems in the future. Yu Bing also said that element-type summons require a lot of conditions to summon. In the academy, she had heard stories about how some of the element-type students couldn't summon their own guardian spirit beasts in the beginning. She had only wanted to take a load off Yu Yang's mind. How could she know that her fake brother's guardian spirit beast was actually a special type monster, Phantom Shadow, and not an element-type beast? Furthermore, with the current spirit level in Yu Yang's body, he should be able to summon the Phantom Shadow. He had summoned it 2 days ago, but kept it a secret. Such a pity, third brother, your talent is just as useless as mine, the plant type that has no future. And you could only summon a thorny flower. Yu Bing shook her head slowly as she sighed. In her mind, the thorny flower was the weakest amongst the monsters. It was the monster that was used by the academy as a teaching tool, so it was fated that there wouldn't be much growth. It's all right. As long as I work hard, no matter what kind of monster, even if it's just a weak, thorny flower, it will be extremely strong when it reaches level 10 and above. Seeing the miss became so sad for him, Yu Yang couldn't help but to comfort her with his words. Actually, based on the knowledge he got from the grimoire, he understood an extremely important point. That is, plant-type monsters might look weak on the outside, however, in reality, it was not weak at all. It was in no way inferior to the most sought-after monsters such as the and beast-type and bird-type monsters. The plant-type monsters appeared to be the weakest one, but on the contrary, it had a huge potential for growth, something that other monster types don't have. Should there be the king of plant-type monsters, it would be this thorny flower that people had looked down upon. LLS Feral's spitting thorny queen 3,000 years ago, there was a ranker called the Thorny Flower Fairy, who had evolved her thorny flower to its maximum evolution stage. The thorny flower's last stage of evolution turned out to be a human-like, golden-crowned thorny flower queen. When demons tried to invade the soaring dragon continent, it was this thorny flower fairy and her thorny flower queen who had slaughtered 3 of the demon kings. The flower had also gobbled more than 5,000 demon troops. The boundless sea of flowers that the flower queen had created became a nightmare for the demons. Even the unbeatable black dragon demon king would run away with tails between his legs at the sight of the thorny flower fairy. This thorny flower fairy was the only human being who had the strength to resist and massacre the strong warriors of the invading demon legion. Unfortunately, her lover died in the battle. The thorny flower fairy couldn't bear her loneliness and had chosen to be together with her lover instead. In the future generations, there had been no one that could uncover the thorny flower's secrets. Countless rankers had tried, but none could make the thorny flower evolve into a mythical ranked humanoid mythical beast. In the end, people could only helplessly give up researching the thorny flower. On the other hand, beast types and animal types, these monsters who had great advantages in the beginning, quickly increased in their popularity with people. And thus, plant-type monsters lost its former glory and had been long forgotten as the strongest humanoid mythical beast who had massacred thousands of demons during the demonic legion invasion. It even became the Academy's teaching tool. That's right, we warriors should strive for self-improvement continuously. We must persevere. Third brother, thank you. Yu Bing nodded, looking like a model student again as she bowed respectfully towards Yu Yang. Third brother, I will go back for today. We can continue our training tomorrow. Seeing the little miss retreating back, Yu Yang mumbled to himself, since no one cared about this insignificant thorny flower, I'm gonna raise a golden crown thorny flower queen.